History is littered with examples of smaller, weaker forces coming up against larger, stronger forces, and yet somehow winning. Whether it's Hannibal defeating a Roman army twice its size by positioning his troops in an interesting way, or Napoleon taking out the Russian and Austrian armies by using deception, or maybe it's Google taking out Yahoo by focusing its efforts on search instead of being the homepage of the internet. Or even in sports, where the Oakland A's decided to not buy talent, but focus its metrics to find undervalued talent. In the end, what lets a smaller force defeat a stronger, bigger force is strategy. What's up with the history lesson? Well, as talent acquisition and human resource leaders, you're more likely to be the David than the Goliath in these kinds of situations. You come up against these better known, better resource companies, and yet somehow you have to win the talent fight against them. No matter how the world of recruiting and hiring changes, it's strategy that's going to be the key to your success. So if you want to gain an edge against companies that have more resources, more recruiters, better brand awareness, you need to get serious about your own talent strategy. Joining me in this podcast is Marcus Body of ThirtyThree, and he is as obsessed with strategy and talent strategy as I am. And together, we're going to help you discover untapped opportunities and new ways of looking at your hiring challenges. We're going to be going deep into this subject because we know that when you build a strong talent strategy, you can compete for talent and win against anyone. And I want to start this conversation very simply. We hear about talent strategy, this magical term, talent strategy, we sprinkle it on like pixie dust, like it's going to make things magically better. Except in my experience, most people who say talent strategy have no clue what talent strategy is. Am I the only one? Am I the weirdo in this case? Okay, don't answer that question exactly that way, but is that a common situation? Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. I think people want to be strategic, but they aren't necessarily 100% sure what they mean by being strategic. And you see, things that are basically a plan have the word plan crossed out and strategy scribbled in at the drafting stage because it kind of sounds better and it sounds like somebody ought to give me more money if I call it a strategy rather than a plan. I mean, I think it's a shame though, because actually there is something into trying to work out having a strategy, and you can achieve a whole different scale of kind of impact if you do have a strategy.
Let's define strategy. It's one of those words like innovation and culture, which people just seem to use willy-nilly as if they know. But when you say strategy, what do you mean?
So for me, I've heard a couple of people whose definitions I like. I've always liked there's a guy called Michael Porter at Harvard Business School who has this definition of strategy as deciding what you're not going to do. I think that's a pretty good one-liner if someone's trying to work out is what I'm looking at a plan or a strategy. It's like, and I've asked clients that question before, is there anything we're not going to do that we would have done before we started this process? If there isn't, then we're probably not really in the realm of doing a strategy. We're just putting together a plan, and a perfectly good plan that will do what we need it to do. Yeah. But we don't really have a strategy until we started making some pretty hard decisions about things we're not going to do that we could have done.
My thinking about strategy is it's a position. It's more positioning than anything else. It's this idea of how are you going to use whatever resources are at your disposal to maximize their impact either now or down the road, right? And I think of like Napoleon and warfare strategy, where you have this idea of when a big army meets a smaller army. For most of human existence, the big army won every single time. And it wasn't until someone smart said, what if I position my troops in a different way to trick the other side, to charge in the direction I want them, and I envelop them and I destroy them with a half-sized army, which is impossible at the time. That is strategy, to say doing more with less, making a bigger impact with less, and putting yourself in a position every step of the way where you are more likely to win the next time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other place where you get a lot of good strategy analogies is in sports. And, it depends where you are in the world, which sport you're talking about. But, it is that belief in, okay, we're going to win this game by having a really tall person up front and some short people behind them. Or, we're going to win this game by getting the fastest people we can hire. Or we're going to, and it's something to do with a belief in how you're going to win. That you can then use to kind of decide what you're going to do next. Very often you can be a tiny business up against giant businesses or vice versa. And that can shape the strategy that you should take. It's knowing how big you are versus who you're up against starts to become pretty important.
Yeah. So how do you know? So you're talking to a client, you're talking to anybody, and they say, "I got this strategy." What's your litmus test? What's your acid test to say, actually, friendo, this is not a strategy. This is just a really well-designed PowerPoint deck, and kudos for you on a very attractive deck, but it's not a strategy.
Absolutely. Well, so I find a good test is one I nicked actually from politics. There's a thing I don't know whether this phrase gets used in America, but in the UK we quite often talk about the manifesto test. Is this politician saying anything that anybody would reasonably ever say the opposite of?
Exactly.
So it's kind of the same with the strategy test. Is, you know, if we look at someone's strategy and go, yeah, but are any of your competitors doing anything different, or is this going to be on all of their lists of things to do? Then you probably don't really have a strategy. You might have a perfectly sensible plan, but it's not a strategy.
Yeah, if you say, we're going to hire the best people ever, that's not a strategy. Yeah. That's a goal. That's a hope. How are you going to make that happen? And given that you are not a massive company, or you are not famous, or you're not have the world-beating product, or whatever your particular set of constraints are, how are you achieving that goal?
I guess the challenge when it gets to sort of talent strategy is that if you're going to do it, the first thing you need to be able to work out is, what is it that we're actually supposed to be achieving? Do you have a very good definition of what your part of the business is supposed to be doing for the business as a whole? And if you don't really have a very good definition of what you're trying to achieve, then you can't really begin on a strategy. That's always got to be your first point. And very often, the reality is people don't have a great idea beyond, hire the best people we can. Yeah. Be a magnet for talent, employer of choice, these kind of all things which are all good in their own right, but they don't give you anything more specific to aim at. And
the first question I would have is, when you say best people, what the heck does best people mean? Are you talking about Nobel laureates? Are you talking about people who are already the best in their field? Or are you hiring the people who you suspect are likely to be those people 5-10 years down the road? Or are you hiring young and you're hiring the people who are valedictorians of cool school number 1, 2, or 3? What do you define as best?
Completely. And I think there are, there are some very old-fashioned views still out there that, some people are better than others and you can rank humanity from top to bottom. And it just doesn't work that way. You can have somebody who's brilliant in one context and is awful in another.
Right now I'm reading a lot about creativity, this idea that, look, you're not better and more creative because you've gone a step farther. It's sometimes because you've taken this wild left turn seemingly for no reason, or you're introducing ideas from some out left field kind of area, and suddenly 2 + 2 = 47.
I work at an ad agency. We hire a lot of people for creativity. What we want when we're hiring people into 33 is people who've got ideas and can think differently. But, the people I know who happen to be good at that have come from just the most ridiculously different backgrounds, and the things people have done before they've ended up in employer brand agencies, And
I know a lot of companies who simply say, we want the best, and then we're going to tell you what to do. I wonder, what did you think you were hiring?
Completely. Well, I mean, I've had certainly worked with clients before in professional services, and they'll say to me, we want people with an entrepreneurial mindset. And I'll go, but people with an entrepreneurial mindset are setting up their own businesses. Yeah. By definition, they're not going to be applying to a graduate scheme. It's not the kind of thing you do if you are super on, unless you're promising to pay them an enormous amount of money so that they can leave you after 2 years and go and set up their own business. But, it's back to that strategy point. If you haven't worked out what you're trying to achieve with talent, then you don't know which of these things is the right thing to do. Yeah. Once you've been through the strategy loop, you can now have a much better idea about, which one of these many possibilities should we start sort of playing towards. I think very often what overwhelms people is when they sit down to start doing strategy, that feels like an overwhelming list of things that you have to understand everything of. And I suppose I always try and reassure them, you only actually need to understand these things one at a time. I would always start by trying to understand, what is the objective that the business is trying to achieve? And it might be there are multiple objectives. It might be we're trying to achieve with this kind of person, and that with that kind of person, and the other with that kind of person. So, we sometimes talk to clients about, sometimes the game that you're playing is being really easy to apply to for someone who just needs a job right now. And for a lot of employers, that might be their entire plan to be that. Yes. For a really big employer, that might just be for some types of employees you want to be that. Whereas for, a more specialist role of someone who's going to be in your industry and he's going to be in your industry for 40 years, it's like, okay, you can now build a reputation with these people.
Yeah, if you're hiring 20 people versus hiring 20,000 people, the scale dictates the strategy a lot of times.
Exactly. And if you kind of copy someone else's really successful strategy, but there's something crucially different about you, you can have a horrible time. Because, you know, if you're like a little tech startup and you try copying IBM, you're going to lose. They've got more money than you. They've got, you know, they've got more visibility than you. They've got more brand awareness. The brilliant, perfect approach for them is going to be wrong for you, and vice versa. You know, you have, you know, I've done some really successful employer brand things before with organisations that I've never tried to replicate with anyone else because they're just too unique and weird and different.
So I'm interested by this idea that, you know, you don't have to have it all mapped out. So I'm a big fan of, like, you know, if you're thinking about warfare, Napoleon didn't have the whole campaign mapped out. He was winning battle after battle after battle. And we talked about this before, and you dropped a term that I thought was really interesting, and I want to reintroduce to everybody listening. And that's the idea of a solution-neutral problem statement. Can you talk a bit about this idea? Because
I've got an engineering degree, and, you know, they taught us this really useful thing on my degree about solution-neutral problem statements. And basically the idea is, whenever someone asks you to do something, and, you know, the classic example I always use is if someone asks you to build a road bridge, what you have to do is try and write down what that person really wanted in a way that doesn't include how you're going to do it. So it might be, you know, there are some cars this side of the river that need to be that side of the river. And yes, a bridge is a solution to that, but so's a tunnel, so's a ferry. So is just driving all the way down to the bridge that's already there and driving all the way back. And you need to evaluate all of these things to work out if a bridge is even a good idea in the first place. You know, clients who work with me will be very familiar with this, because whenever they say to me, we need an EVP, I always start with going, do you? Why? Yeah. What are you going to do with it? Tell me why you think you want an EVP, because it might completely do it. And we might actually at the end of it go, you don't really need an EVP, do you? You need a little attraction campaign over here.
So that leads to the biggest question of all, which is, why is strategy valuable? We talk about it. Everybody talks about it. It's a term you drop in every which way. Everybody in this industry refers to it at some point. But why?
And I think strategy is the name we call deciding what should be done, rather than doing what you tell us.
Yeah, I think of, like, you know, if I'm a TikTok expert, I know how to maximize the value of TikTok. I don't always necessarily know why TikTok over, say, YouTube, right? What is the goal? Yeah, what is the goal we're trying to achieve? And I think that is like the microist kind of version of strategy versus tactics. Like,
let's pick on that example then. So what you could be trying to achieve completely different things with TikTok. If you're a brand that no one's heard of, or that young people haven't heard of, so let's say you're a business-to-business brand, young people haven't heard of you, you might just be using TikTok to get them to know your name. And it might be as simple as that. It is a win if they see our stuff on TikTok and then they could repeat our brand name. And
so when they go to a job board and they see 20,000 jobs, they go, oh, I heard that was a cool company who did that funny TikTok. Bang.
Exactly. Whereas if you're a really well-known brand, but you're kind of misunderstood, so let's say you're a big brand that perhaps has a negative perception out there in the marketplace, right? Then you might be using TikTok to do something completely different. You might be using it to change a perception of you. In which case, you know, that's going to be a lot more difficult to measure, because it now doesn't matter how many people have seen your TikTok; it's how many people actually change their minds as a result of seeing your TikTok.
Yes.
But so we're no longer interested with how many people just saw it. That's kind of relevant, but it's not really our objective. Our objective is, have we changed their minds at all? And you need to find a way of tracking that. And, you know, so is TikTok going to be a part of many successful strategies? Absolutely, because it's got loads of eyeballs on it. But it's going to be doing completely different jobs in those strategies, depending on where you're starting from, where you're trying to get people to. You know, therefore, what job you're expecting that channel to do. And if you're a big employer, you might be using it for multiple different objectives for different audiences.
This is a lot of fun. I hope you're having a lot of fun with these conversations, because I want to have a bunch of these for everybody to hear, because that's really what the podcast is going to be all about, deeper thinking about talent strategy.
Completely. And I think, you know, it's an opportunity for everyone to get thinking about. There are no beautiful right answers in this, but, you know, what there are is things that you learn along the way. And when you've been doing it for as long as James has been doing it, or I've been doing it, you've kind of discovered a couple of things almost by accident as you keep doing it. And I think what we wanted to do was just kind of open up that conversation and get more people talking about it, and, you know, joining in with this conversation about what is it, a strategy? How do you achieve it? What makes it different from just that plan I inherited from my predecessor?
Because it starts with the strategy.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we will see you next time.